Hey, it is the TexAgs Rewind. David Duno and Billy Liucci. I'm about to leave, but we have to get this in. How you doing, Billy?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah. You think they're going to cover?
Huh?
The Ags are going to cover?
Did I pick that? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I do.
Good. I'm glad you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
So during the show today.
Very friendly today.
Yeah. And what about the second and friendly? I like that from Seth. That was nice.
Friendly.
So a little optimism, a little pessimism. That's what happens when we talk Aggie football on a Friday. We did the Go Hour, our pick six. How bad is the injury bug for the Ags? He gave us some insight, he being Billy. And you're still saying TBD on a lot of those guys, right?
Yeah, I think so. I just the point of that was not to say every one of those guys, and I didn't say every one of those guys listed was out. I didn't say anything like that. It was interpreted that way on Twitter. The point of it was to say this is a banged up football team. Not the ideal situation when you're going on the road to play an angry Alabama squad. But at the end of the day, if you're A&M, you can say they can be as angry as they want if their Heisman Trophy quarterback's not playing. Jalen Milroe's scary. He can run, he can throw. He's going to have a great defense to back him up. But it's still, if you're going to play Alabama, you'd rather play them without their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and I think that's going to be the case.
And I don't think Alabama's as good as they were last year. So there is that. We have that. We talked to Caroline Fenton on this week's schedule in the SEC and the final countdown. Steve and Seth McKinney is TexAgs Rewind.
I'm going to take TCU. Kansas is a fun story and all, but I just saw TCU light up OU.
Yep.
And I have to believe that despite all the excitement around Tennessee and despite all the issues at Oklahoma, that they still have better players in the secondary than Kansas does.
Sure.
So I'm going to take TCU and think maybe the clock is striking 12 on Kansas. Remember, they're 5-0 for the first time since 2009. You know what happened in 2009? They lost their last 7 games.
Is that what they did? Oh, my gosh.
Because they are, Kansas.
Mangino. Well, who was the coach?
I think it was Mangino.
Mangino, yeah. Yep. I am going to go Kansas. And I am going Kansas because I think their luck is going to run out. Not yet. They got another week at least.
Did you ever hear when Mark Mangino got lost going to the airport in Kansas City and had to ask for directions?
No.
Yeah, he said, "How do I get back to 435?" And they said, "Diet and exercise."
Oh, man. That. Have you used this one before?
Not on the air.
Oh, gosh. Nick, what else? I'm taking Kansas.
Arkansas going to number 23, Mississippi State, excuse me. That's at Davis Wade Stadium. Mississippi State is a 9.5-point favorite.
I think it's a big number for these teams, but I like Mississippi State.
I do too because
KJ?
There's a big question that he's not going to play. And, oh, by the way, if you are one of the worst secondaries in the country, is there a less advantageous matchup than Mississippi State?
They can light you up. Yep. I'm definitely going Mississippi State. So you're in?
Yeah.
And all right.
So right now we're all the same, right? Or
No,
did you
Kansas.
take Kansas?
I took Kansas.
Okay.
You took TCU.
All
right, Nick. What's next?
All righty, a little Pac-12 action. Number 11, Utah going to number 18, UCLA. 2:30 kickoff at the Rose Bowl, so there'll be about 10 people there. Utah is a 4.5-point favorite.
Utes all day long.
Yeah, Utes all day long. I do not believe in UCLA. I don't believe in. There's no home field advantage there either. It is Utah.
Yeah, all day. UCLA's unbeaten. They beat South Alabama by a point because South Alabama didn't kick a field goal when they had the opportunity, and so UCLA ended up winning on the last play field goal against South Alabama. And then that's South Alabama. And then last week, they beat Washington, and that looks pretty good until you really start looking at Washington. Their big win was over Michigan State, which is atrocious. So, Utes.
Yep, I'm going Utes as well. Let's go to the last one.
All right, Texas A&M going to Tuscaloosa to face off with number 1 Alabama, 7 o'clock kick. Bama is a 24-point favorite.
Now, see, I heard it was 24.5. And let me tell you, I want that half point.
You think that'll be a big difference? Okay.
Well, I mean, I could see myself taking A&M at 24.5. At 24, I'm like, yeah. 24, I do believe that, like I said, A&M is going to play inspired ball. And the word is that Jalen Milroe is probably starting for Alabama. So I will take A&M and all those points.
I'm taking A&M too. I'm taking it, baby.
Yeah, but you think A&M's going to win, right?
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
that.
saying it's impossible, but I'm not saying I'm picking it.
So you're saying there's a chance.
What I said is a lot of those guys weren't practicing at a later point in the week, and that typically, I didn't even say this, but that's typically not a good indicator. But some of those guys are going to be on the field. Those names I said, some of them are going to play. But my point is, when you're looking for performance on Saturday, and you spent much of the week practicing without a lot of those guys, that's not a good. It makes you wonder what kind of prep you had, and some of them will be hurt. Some of them, won't play. In other words, what's this thing they say in the NFL? Questionable. Right. Is that what they call it? That's what I would describe most of those.
And
tell me if I leave anybody out there. I think, obviously Jalen Jones left the game, was banged up. Mm-hmm. That was a head thing, concussion. Tyreek Chappelle suffered a similar thing later in that game. So with those two, you just never know. Do they start? And I know they didn't practice on Tuesday. Did they come back? Were they back by Thursday? Are they going to play? Those are veteran guys that if they clear protocol, they can play. But they missed practice time this week. I think right up through Wednesday, Trey Zune was banged up, and you're looking at a situation on the O-line where you're shuffling. It wouldn't shock me to see Zune out there, but it also wouldn't shock me to see Aki at left tackle and Wyckoff at guard on the left side. That's a possibility. I know everybody thought, well, it'll be Crown over at left tackle. Not necessarily. If that were the case, I think that other option's probably a little more likely in terms of having some experience out there. And again, like Zune could be out there playing. So just these guys missed significant practice time this week, and they are banged up. I think they'll get Regis back. I don't know about McKinley. He keeps trying. That's the thing that sucks. I think people don't realize McKinley Jackson suffered a pretty significant camp injury to his elbow. And the guy just keeps coming back and practicing because he wants to play. And I was told this summer, earlier this year, the two guys that just will fight you to get on the field are Haynes King and McKinley Jackson. They really, really, more so than most, more so than anybody.
Right.
So it's tough. It's been really tough for him, I think. This is a guy that played hurt, got the shoulder fixed, was right there to the end of fall camp, and it has really hurt the A&M defense this year. So if they can get him back, and he's super close. Look, I think guys like him, I don't know for sure about Tumiche and Andre White, but more than likely, you could have all three of those guys back for the next game now that you're coming up.
Bye week.
Now that you're coming up on a bye. And realistically, I know there's probably somebody that's a special teams guy or something that I'm forgetting, but realistically, outside of Moko, you should have a really healthy football team to start the second half of the season. That ain't the case this weekend. It's just not. I mean, guys, we'll see how many of them play hurt.
All right, I'm just going to keep it with the A&M stuff. If Milroe is starting for Alabama, how do you see that playing out in A&M's favor in any way, shape, or form? Does it change the way you look at this game at all?
It doesn't, because A&M is also playing with Haynes King. And it's a backup on backup. And if it was Milroe with Max Johnson, I would say, okay, maybe, that's, net positive for A&M. But at this point, to me, I think it's kind of a wash. But I think it's just going to be a really big test for Jalen Milroe. I think we're going to learn a lot about him. And going in the Arkansas game, no, he didn't look like Bryce Young. Of course not. He's a backup. He didn't look as dominant as Bryce Young. But with a week of prep underneath his belt, and understanding that he probably would be the starter going into this game, is that some sort of mental edge that he has over Haynes King being named the starter, or at least having the idea that he would probably be starting? I don't know. To me, this game, this A&M Alabama game, is one that I looked at I'm not touching this game. This spread feels like a trap. I think that this is a very emotional game, with all of the Jimbo and Saban beef going into it. So I really do not know what to think about this game, and I wish I had a better expert analysis to give you. But to me, I feel like this is going to be a weird game. And I think it's going to be something weird is going to happen. I can't tell you what. To me, it's a weird game.
Hey, I do want to ask you about Mississippi State, Arkansas. That is a game that I'm so intrigued by because of what Billy said earlier. Arkansas could find themselves 0-3 in the SEC. Mississippi State, outside of that LSU game, has been a really darn good team.
Yeah, they have. And I think it comes down to, can you stop Mississippi State's offense or can you not? Texas A&M proved that they couldn't stop Mississippi State's offense.
Yeah.
LSU proved that if you get pressure on Will Rogers, then you can stop their offense if you get pressure on him. Arkansas has gotten to the quarterback and has been able to put pressure on the quarterback a lot this season. But also, with that being said, they haven't been able to do it against more premier or elite SEC opponents. This Arkansas front hasn't looked as dominant the past couple of weeks as maybe we thought in the first 2 weeks of the season. So if Arkansas is not able to get pressure on Will Rogers, if that defense isn't able to stop this offense, then I think Arkansas has a very, very good case of looking at 0-3 in the SEC. And I think we're all kind of looking at this Arkansas team like, should we have hyped you up this much going into this season?
We alluded to the offensive line. Let's start off with Bryce's game and the struggles snapping the ball and just in that how that
We're going to start there, or are we going to start that the whole O-line has not been good for the fifth game in a row?
Well, I think that I would put it that way. I mean, that has been, to me, as obviously an offensive lineman, I'm not saying I played perfectly, but what I've seen out there has just been lackluster, man. It's been really, really disappointing to see the performance of these guys. And you know what? The culture is what you allow it to be. And I think that starts with Adagio, man. I mean, I think he's not holding these guys accountable for how hard they need to be playing, and they're not. I'm trying to be as nice as I can, as graceful about this as I can be, what I'm saying is not these kids' fault. You could play with effort if you're made to play with effort, and I think that they're lacking that. They're getting whatever little bit of a job done they need to be getting, but I'm like, be relentless, do more, show. They're not finishing blocks. Let's just put it that way, right? Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're onto it, and part of the issue I look at, and I say, you look at the experience level of that offensive line, and generally when you come up and you're playing as a freshman, a redshirt freshman, or even as a sophomore, you're not the experienced guy on the line.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at your senior tackle or senior guard.
They're having to
for
create
leadership.
their culture.
And they don't have that culture right now. They don't have that guy on the line showing them the way to do it. And I think that's part of the problem.
But where would that start, though? It's got to start
sometimes it just has to grow
man.
and develop over time. You can't just manufacture something like that by snapping your fingers or practicing real hard. I mean, it takes time to build that type of culture. And they're just not quite there yet. But they've showed improvement. They've showed signs of being able to run the football and block well against the run. The pass protection has looked a little shady at times.
With no help from the backs.
Zero help from the backs.
Yeah,
that's
that
a big
always
problem.
falls on the line. No one
And
ever
the
sees
quarterback.
that. Yeah, well, that's true, too.
Sacks are not always the offensive line. It's running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks, receivers running the right routes. There's a litany of problems right now on the offense, and you can sit here and you can point fingers and blame. There's plenty to go around.
Right.
It's not all on the coach. The guys got to freaking do their job. They're not executing.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's sick of hearing that word, but the fact of the matter is that coaches coach and players play.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look in the NFL, every year coaches get fired because players don't do their job. And we can say, well, it's the coach's job to make them do their job. But if you're a player, you should have more pride in the way you play.
I agree with
and
that.
prepare better so that you're not out there making stupid mistakes. Quarterback's got to put the ball where it's supposed to go. Receivers got to catch the ball when it hits them in their hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guards have to know who they're blocking, who they're supposed to pick up on a blitz, and two guys shouldn't be blocking one guy. So I mean, it's a lot of those mistakes.
I think you nailed it, and I think it's both. Like, I think you look in everything you just said. It's across every position. It spans more than just this season. It go, so that's where Jimbo has to look at it and go, why are all of my guys making mistakes? I don't care if it's this veteran receiver, like let's say, like if it's a Chase Lane or if it's the 5-star signee like Evan Stewart, like they're making mistakes. If it's my returning center firing snaps all over the place, and if it's my All-American guard getting forklifted, or my right tackle who's a special talent returning starter jumping off sides pre-snap, if it's my young guys on the other side, if it's my all-world running back missing a basic blitz pickup, it's across the board. It's everywhere. Then I go, okay, then what about the other running backs? Who on your roster can pick up a blitz? Put that guy out there. So that part drives me nuts. And then I think on the player side,
but again,
I don't see enough. Sorry, Seth. I don't see enough. Screw this. This isn't good enough. I'm not allowing this as an athlete, as a competitor. I'm going to be mentally tougher, and just stop letting this happen. It's going to start with me, or it's going to start with you or you.
No, you've seen these, and they said it, and I hate it. But you can be in a situation where there's always that one. If it wasn't for the one guy, and offense is that way. Here's the deal about defense: you can have 10 mental errors, and then Myles Garrett gets a sack, and the defense is the wrecking crew. You know what I'm saying? But on offense, if you have one mental error on the offensive line, that is a sack.
Yeah.
So it's just a
killer.
completely different ball game on offense when it comes to mental errors, and I get that. But the effort and the tenacity, somebody's got to step up. I know they're young, and I know, but I go back, and I'm going to stick to it. A coach can set the freaking tone and demand more of their guys. Okay, and I know that that it might be getting done. There might be all this going on. There's all this coaching I'm unaware of.
But you're not seeing it.
I think you can be held accountable, and I don't think that guys are being held accountable for that kind of stuff.
Well, they don't. They're not playing with a nasty mentality. That's for sure.
Yeah,
not seeing that. So I mean, I'm with you on
passive.
that. It's more of a passive mentality and just trying to get their blocks, but they're not out there trying to break people's will.
Right. And that wasn't that a thing. I mean, it was like my freshman year, that was Steve Marshall's deal, will breakers.
Yeah,
right?
I
Break
remember
their
that.
will, all that stuff, and he handed out shirts. And every chop block was a break their will. You get one, and there was like will breakers is what they're called. But the snap thing, I mean, that is what it is. You just got to practice that. I'm not going to blame anyone on that. You just got to do it. I mean, there's nothing else to it. It's very hard to do on the run. Passes, it should never be an issue, and it was, unfortunately. But on the run, I get that, but you just got to practice it. That's all that
I don't
is.
know. I'm still confused why they changed the snap.
I don't know
anyway.
what is going on.
It's
working not that
fine.
hard to figure out.
Well, they changed the snap. They went from a dead ball snap to a live
First
ball
off,
snap. I don't know why.
And again, I would
was
put that
fine.
on it's like I don't care how you get the ball back. Get the ball back.
All right, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and also don't drop your coffee.
That's already happened once today.
One time. I'm not going to say who did it on the show, but it wasn't me this time.
It was the microphone's fault.
It was. Thanks for watching, guys.